red and yellow jasper. Mulekite, they like to call that. Pretty fun stuff all over the place here. Another nice little piece of red jasper. Just sticking out in the sun. It's kind of plainer stuff, but it does tumble up and people like it, so we'll save it. I spotted this one. Check that out. Yeah, just sitting out, just as natural as could be. It's pretty wild. This is why it's really good to go rock hounding right after a rainstorm. Because a lot of this stuff, rain will wash it off. And you can get a really good idea. Look at that color coming through that. That's just insane. Now, obviously it's a keeper. But it's just good advice. Take a walk right after a good rain shower and you might find something really pretty on the gravel bar. Here's a cute little piece. I'm actually gonna stand up the tripod to show you this, so bear with the shaky camera a bit for a second. Alright. These are actually pretty cool. I've been hoping to find one of these. The last one was sort of like it, but, you know, not quite. Some people would call it that, but this is what you call a jaspagate. It's a agatized jasper. And you'll find them in a couple of different colors and a couple of different patterns. You can even find them leopard spotted, which is pretty super cool. But there's a lot of this around, and you can actually find a good bit of it. And especially here in this region, we tumble these up, and you can actually make spheres out of them, marbles. It's really fun to play with these. They're good slicers because, you know, even if you can get a little bit of this, you know, you get it through the slicer, you can get a couple of really nice little slices and you can make pendants and charms out of them. I've seen some people slice them into billet blocks and facet points out of them. So they can be fun to play with. They're a really good stone if you're just learning how to cut stone. Because, you know, it's sort of forgiving stuff. It's, you know, it's hard, but it's not, you know, it's not like cutting sapphire or anything. The other thing we found just right here was this cute little piece of petrified wood. It's a tiny little thing, you know, it's not much of anything, but it's something cute, and I'll tumble that up and throw that in one of those boxes I give away. And I figured I'd share that. See what this is. I see some conchoidal fractures, so it might be some kind of a chalcedony. Looks kind of big, but you know. Let's see. Oh, it's bigger than I thought. Big chunky piece of something. Let's get it up and have a look at it. Looks like it's a bit of common chalcedony. It's cool. I mean, it would slice up. It would be really pretty if you sliced it. I mean, I'm not taking anything away at all from that stone. It's real pretty. You could slice that up and get something fun out of it. You know, maybe carve one of those little alien skulls out of it. something fun. But they are kind of cool. Let's see if we found anything in the little hole here. There's a little piece of petrified wood. That's kind of cool. Nothing else interesting in there. We'll keep on looking. This is the best reason you go rock hunting right after a rainstorm. Washes the dust off of these things. Oh, look at that. It's bigger than we thought. Well, that's just cool. Oh, it's a nice red one. Look at that. Really super nice deep red. That's pretty cool. That's keeper. Here's a real nice little piece of jasper. Look at that. Nice little caramely brown with some highlights of red in there. Oh yeah, that's going. Just everywhere here today. It's pretty cool. Tip, especially if you're thinking about picking up a stone to collect it for tumbling. Let's take a look at this guy in particular. See that crack along the top there? Right there? Alright. I'll put my finger against it to highlight it a little better. See that crack? That goes pretty well through, and when you tumble the stone, it's going to fracture there. So you're going to have two small stones. And that may be cool if you're like going to tumble it because you're going to work with it later on in a process or step later on. Like let's say you've got some stuff that's all, you know, like broken up. I mean like seriously rutted up. Like this green guy. Alright, you want to tumble it to clean it up and see what you got to work with. You know, is the coloring of the stone consistent? Is it fracture free? Have you tumbled through all the fractures? That sort of thing. That way you can decide whether or not you want to try and make a suite of jewelry out of it or just cut slabs from it. But it helps you figure out whether or not it's worth picking up, because you do have to work down through all of that material in order to get to a smooth surface, especially if you're going to make something big out of it. So if you do have to get something, you know, maybe think about something with a lot less deep fractures, or maybe a little smoother. You don't have to work as hard to get down to a beautiful object if you've taken some time in selecting what you're going to pick up. It's a big, beautiful gravel bar full of stones. And sometimes the little fractured stone, well, it may be pretty, but it's not always worth picking up. So we're going to leave this one here, and somebody else can have it. Nice little petrified wood. Got buckets of it. So we'll leave that. There's a really nice colorful pudding stone. That's pretty cool. Along and I spotted this real pretty red jasper and I sprayed it and thought, well, you know, I wasn't gonna film it, but it really is kind of pretty. I just really wanted to show this to you guys because they are sort of unique Oregon only stones. I mean, you can find these, you know, California line, maybe as far north as the Washington line, but really this is kind of a regional oddity, this red and yellowish muackite kind of jasper. It's really cool. I mean, it's really gemmy stuff. I mean, I just sprayed it down with a little, there's a little soapy water in there. It's just really light, but I wanted to show this to you so that you could kind of appreciate it and what it looks like. red, very gemmy. It's got a really waxy appearance to it. And it takes a polish. It will, and it really has really super cool optical properties. Like you can almost look into the stone. There's waves and rolls of color. It's almost a plume agate, almost, but not really. And you couldn't really call it a full jasper because there's too much chalcedony playing around in the inside of it. But it's still pretty cool, and they're fun. But get that all over the place here, and it's you can find it in, you know, from like this poppy appearance to splotches, you know, going all over it, like, you know, ketchup and mustard kind of jasper. That's pretty cool. But yeah, you can sort of find it all over the place here, and it's a really fun stone to show. But it what makes it unique to Oregon is the way that sometimes when you cut this, there'll be rolls and waves and undulations of color when they get tumbled out that makes it look like it's looks like the stone's on fire. It's really super cool. And there are some people that have actually taken to calling this stuff wildfire jasper when it shows in that particular configuration of reds and oranges and yellows that look like flames. It can be really cool stuff to work with, especially if you find one of those really flamey looking pieces. Really cool. I'm going to get into a spot where I can just show this on film really well. Check that out. Alright. I'm going to spray this and you're going to see why these things are so cool and why they polish up just really, really well. Alright. There we go. Check that out. Look at those waves on that. That's neat. This is kind of like that ketchup and mustard thing that I was talking about. Just really shows it in the light. But check that out. Isn't that wild? Just flows together almost like Murano glass. It's just really wild stuff. I just had to share a few of these with you because they really are neat, and it is kind of unique to Oregon. Well, the Pacific Northwest. Let's not, you know, just say Oregon, because that would exclude some people, and then I get comments, people saying, hey, I found it here, and that's 3 inches over the state line. Then I'd have to be all mean about it, and, you know, let's not go through that aggravation. But anyway, it's a pretty little Milwaukee stone. Figured I'd share that. And it's definitely a keeper. We give these away. Here's one of those red and yellows that really, I'm gonna just wet down the surrounding area so that you can kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. Then we come real tight in on it, and hopefully the colors show. You can kind of see there's variations of reds and yellows and oranges coming through that. These are really super fun stones, and this guy's really tiny. I mean, just a tiny, tiny little thing. But they are super, super great. And I save these. I mean, every time I'm out, I pick these up. They're just great stones to tumble because they're, I mean, look at that. It's almost already perfect. They just need a buffing tumble. And really, that's all I do with them. I give them a buffing tumble and they're ready to go. I give them away to people. It's kind of fun. We send them out all over. Over from it is another little red one. These things will pop out. Check out the color on that. happy. I like that. I like finding these really nice happy color stones. They're just bright and cheerful on a gray gravel bar. They just kind of stick out. I like that. There's something to be said for sticking out. Another really pretty red one. These are real small, but they're nice to tumble. And one other thing that you can do with these really small stones when they're really nice, and you know, sometimes even when you get them out of the tumbler, they're all like really small, and you know, you get like some polished stone, you know, that's like that big, and you're like, well, what do I do with that? You can take these little guys and save them up, and you can drill them, make necklaces out of them. That's one thing. You can also just save them up in a bag. You know, you get like a nice big bag of tumbled stones together, and you go to the grocery store and you get, you know, you're going to give somebody a house plant to, you know, put in their living room or wherever it is they're going to put their house plant. And instead of the little stones, you know, that they put on top, you just open up your little bag and you put in some jaspers and agates and carnelians, and you just top dress the soil with it. It helps to hold the moisture in their apartment or house, and there's something pretty on top of the plant as a top dressing, a mulch, if you will. But it just kind of sits on the top, and it helps preserve the moisture in your houseplant soil. It's a handy tip, and it's also really pretty. And if you're one of those people who believes in, you know, like properties of stones or anything like that, then, you know, it couldn't hurt. So there is that. Just figured I'd share that little tidbit with you. Took a little further down the gravel bar and found a few other things, and well, maybe decide that maybe there was something worth talking about in some of this material. And there is something worth talking about in it, and it's thinking about what you're going to make out of these stones that you pick up. What can you make? I mean, you know, you find something, you know, like this little green guy here. Could you slab it and maybe make buttons out of it? Or some kind of a something. What would you make out of it? You know, could you make a pendant? Could you just tumble it? You know, when you think about how much work it takes, this would actually clean up pretty easily, because it doesn't need much done. I mean, you know, this area, you can work it down. That's workable. You could work it, you could drill it, you know, drill for a pendant. You could drill all the way through it. Or maybe you have something smaller in mind. You know, you want a little stone accent. You check out the banding. You can see that you could slice that. It would take a slice pretty well. You would have to set it up right, but you could slice it. Or just tumble it. Put it in a rock pile and look at it. But most of the time, the stuff that I pick up is going to be worked with. I tumble it. I give it away. Like I said, I top house plants with it. It's cute and it's fun, but it's something I do. This is a weird one. Weird regional stone. Almost looks like picture jasper. You can kind of almost see a little hillside scene, maybe some mountains in the red up toward the top. It's kind of pitted. Looks like compressed sandstone. Yeah, you find this around here. It's Rogite, Josephinite. It's got both names. Both are probably the same. I'm sure there's a subtle difference, and somebody will tell me in the comments, but guess what? I don't care. It's really pretty. Has fun scenes to it. But these are stones that I will pick up and use because I'll definitely work with them. And that's why you pick up stones. You know, they gotta be pretty, they gotta be beautiful, but you also gotta be able to work with them. A few other little pretty things here. While I was trying to get Taylor to be on film, Jay found these. Let's get those. Check that out. These reds are pretty awesome. This is what I was talking about with the reds going into the yellows, looking a little bit like a flame. That's pretty cool. This one, that's just got all kinds of stuff going on. Reds and oranges and yellows. Oh yeah, and a giant, just really super cool gemmy stripe going right through the center of it. That's pretty cool. Those are definitely keepers. This is one of those little educational things that's kind of interesting, and some people may find this informative, and some people go, well, duh, obviously. Well, not everything is obvious, and no, not everything is an easy answer. Just because it's easy to you doesn't make it easy to anybody else. It's why we avoid being overly technical when we describe things. Thus the Down the Rabbit Hole article at my job website, mentioning that Down the Rabbit Hole article here. It's not important to dive down and know exactly every aspect of a stone. Is it cool? Is it pretty? Is it worth picking up? Can you work with it? So that's what we're going to look at. You got a cool little green stone. The color is awesome. All right, so that's why we're looking at this one. The color is cool. It's green and red. They go together. Nicely themed. Makes you think about, you know, what can you make out of it? Can you carve it into something? But you also have to look at fracture lines. See those fracture lines coming through it? There's a great big one right there. There's more fracture lines coming through here. There's a fracture line coming this way. It's just little fractures all over it. Plus, it's pretty pitted. Now, if it were a little more solid, I'm going to pick up another little example here that's not too far away. Alright. Similarly constructed kind of stone. Different colors, but similarly constructed. Less pits, less cracks, less divots. You know, is it approaching smooth? You know, because that's an awful lot of work time to go from that to that to that to really smooth. Right? How much time is it going to take you to get to there? Because to here is when you start polishing. So, you know, if you start off rough and you get to this mid-grade thing where you get it relatively smoothed down and you can see if it's going to fracture apart. And then you get And that helps you figure out whether or not you can commit to finishing the rest of the stone. I mean, you know, sometimes you can tell. This guy, we can clearly tell it's got some bad fractures in it. It's not a good candidate for working. And, you know, really there are some people who say, oh, well, you could stabilize it with, you know, glass and still work it. It's effort. Again, how much effort does it take to get from here to here? It's a lot of effort. You got to infuse it with glass. That's cost. That's energy. That's time. You got to work it down again to get it to something that's relatively polished and shaped that you can turn it into something. So you have to think about that when you're out there picking up stones. Sometimes this stuff is just best left, and it becomes Leaverite. Leave her right there.